Welcome. In this tutorial, we will discuss netiquette as well as some tips and tricks to help you while communicating online. Have you ever heard of netiquette? Netiquette, also known as net etiquette, refers to etiquette when communicating online. Think of it as a virtual code of conduct for having manners and treating others with respect virtually. Now, you may be asking yourself, why is netiquette important? All online communication is nonverbal, so it is open to interpretation by your reader. It is important to remember that you are not only representing yourself, but also the organization with your communications. The use of proper netiquette will help you to represent both yourself and the organization correctly to a larger audience. By not adhering to basic netiquette rules, you may have long-term negative effects on your relationship with your business partners. Now, let's look at 10 rules for proper netiquette. Rule number 1, remember the human. Your written words are read by real people, all deserving of respectful communications. Before you send a communication, pause and ask yourself, would I be okay with this if someone else had written it to me? Rule number 2, adhere to the same standards of behavior online that you follow in real life. Standards in the virtual world should not be lower than your real-world standards. For example, would you behave rudely to someone face-to-face? You probably answered no, and neither should you in the virtual world. Rule number 3, know where you are in cyberspace. Depending on where you are working within the virtual world, the same written communication that may be acceptable in one area may not be acceptable in another area. What you would text a friend may not be appropriate in an email to a colleague or business partner. Rule number 4, respect other people's time and bandwidth. It is very important to remember that electronic communication takes time to read and reply. Most of us lead busy lives and do not have time to read and respond to frivolous emails. Be sure your communications are meaningful and to the point. You can do this by excluding extra text, graphics, or attachments that take extra time to download or are not pertinent to the subject. Remember, when in doubt, do without. Rule number 5, respond promptly. You are in a position where both internal and external business partners will be contacting you by email, and your email address is available to the public. Please have the courtesy to reply to emails as soon as possible, if not by the end of each business day. If it is going to take longer to fully reply, email the business partner to tell them that. Do not simply ignore a communication because you are too busy or unsure how to respond. If you are not the appropriate area for the question, direct the business partner to the appropriate area and provide that area's contact information. Rule number 6, make yourself and the organization look good online. Because the customer cannot see you, you are being judged by the quality of your writing. Be sure to keep the following things in mind. Always check for grammar errors, know what you're talking about, and be sure to state it clearly, and always be pleasant and polite. Rule number 7, help resolve issues quickly. It is easy to lose a sense of what is going on when you are using technology. If you have back and forth communication with a business partner who seems to be confused or may still have questions, reach out and engage them directly. You can have a positive impact by picking up the telephone or having a simple face-to-face conversation to clear up any questions they may have. Be sure to follow up with a recap email to help confirm what you spoke about, and the business partner can reference it in the future. Rule number 8, respect privacy and practice discretion. Just as you would like others to respect your privacy, you should do the same. Be sure to err on the side of caution when deciding to discuss or share a virtual communication. In your role, you may have sensitive information shared with you. Just because you are aware of the information does not mean it should be public knowledge. Rule number 9, Be patient. You may possess more knowledge about a certain topic or process than the person you are communicating with. In these situations, remember the human. Knowing more than others on a topic does not make it okay to be rude or abrupt. Remember, this may be the 10th time today that you've heard the same question, but this is the first time today that that individual has asked it. So be patient and take time to share your knowledge with that person. Rule number 10, keep the flames under control. When encountering an upset or disgruntled business partner, do not feed the flames. Listen to the business partner's concerns and extinguish the flames by guiding the discussion back to a more productive direction. If the business partner continues to be upset, you can always refer them to your supervisor for assistance. Now that we have covered the 10 rules of netiquette, let's review some basic best practices. First, spelling and grammar. Be sure to always check spelling and use proper grammar and punctuation. Errors in any of these areas can drastically change the message. Always be sure to reread for the tone and message. And lastly, be sure to always have your spelling and grammar devices turned on. Next, remember that not all abbreviations belong in emails. Here you can see a list of abbreviations that should not be used in professional emails. Emojis are not appropriate for professional communication with your business partners. Communication should always begin with a proper salutation. Remember that these communications are representing you and the organization. Also, if you are unsure of someone's title, please avoid addressing them by their first name. Don't call Dr. Smith Roger. Another basic principle you should remember in your communications is to always include a proper sign-off. Here you can see some examples of sign-offs that should be avoided, as well as some that are more appropriate. In professional communications, closing remarks such as best regards, or thank you are always recommended. Another basic principle is to use respectful language. Some other helpful hints to ensure you are being respectful include pausing before you send your email, rereading your email first, never responding when you're angry, and be sure to make communications as positive as possible. Now, let's take a look at the subject line. A couple basic principles of the subject line include never making demands in this area, do not put information in this area that should go into the body of your email, and be as descriptive as possible about what your email is in regard to. The last basic principle we will look at, and one of the most important, is not to yell. Never write in all capital letters, as this can be construed as yelling. Now, let's review some quick tips and tricks that will help you in your online communications. The first tip is to not be too creative in your emails. It is not recommended to use colored or creative fonts or highlight text within your communications. Also, less is more. Photos, quotes, or unnecessary information within your signature are discouraged. Next, keep it brief. Emails should be short and to the point and focus on essential information. If there are multiple comments or a list of things in your communication, use a numbered or bulleted list to make the information organized and concise for your reader. And lastly, always remember the human and try to be forgiving of others' mistakes. Let minor errors slide. If you do have to address a mistake with someone, be sure to do it in private and not around other people. Thank you for joining us today. Be sure to implement the 10 rules for proper netiquette as well as the best practices within your daily communications. This will ensure they are always appropriate and professional.